Morning. Well, close this. Better in here with that closed. How you doing, everybody? Holy hell, that's bright. Wow. That looks crazy. I'm going to try and tone that down a little bit. Sometimes if I... Maybe it's that. I have no idea why this camera sometimes is so harsh. But anyways, guys, morning. How are you? Happy Sunday to you. Somebody's up there in the top chat already. That is Jeff Rupert. Thanks for doing that, buddy. He says, where's my coffee? Did you change the pickups in the Explorer was your question. You know what they are is there was this guy named Will Boggs who used to make pickups. Nice guy, really nice guy. I don't know where he is now. He had a company called WB. He made great pickups, and they're a set of his Firewater pickups, kind of a high output thing. Not normally what I use, actually. And I found them to be a little dark, actually, in that guitar in particular, a little mid-rangey and dark, and it's an all mahogany guitar. So, but a few people have commented this week that they really like the way that guitar sounds. Maybe it's a nice contrast to some of my other instruments. Doesn't have a lot of clarity, but it you know, if you're trying to play semi-clean or something like that, or clean stuff. But I don't know. Maybe folks dig it. And it's a good point. It's nice to have guitars with contrasting tones and stuff. Anyway, Will Boggs, WB pickups. Some of you might remember him. He got in some hot water where he'd taken deposits for pickups and things, and he couldn't seem to fulfill all those orders, as I remember. And then he kind of disappeared. And so I'm not sure where he is now. He was always very nice to me, but I don't think the business, you know, end of things worked out for him very well. And there were some pissed off people at the end that didn't get their pickups and stuff. But anyway, that's what's in that guitar. He made me some other sets as well, PAF-y kind of stuff, and they were great, like really, really good pickups. Yeah. So, and if not, how about Doug Aldrich's Sir set? Now I have those in my Modern, and they sound good in that guitar. Once again, they're you know, a high output kind of affair and very different than my Thornbuckers. So that contrasts are good sometimes, you know. But yeah, so I do have Doug's set in one guitar, that older brown Modern that I have. George Waltermere is up in the top chat. Thank you, sir. He says, hey Pete, what's your favorite pedal platform combo? Looking at a ML Fender HRD, I think that would be probably a pretty good choice. I really like my Bella for that as well. I've got a Sir Bella. I think some other ones that I would consider would be maybe those the custom series deluxe reverb, which is like a Silverface amp. That probably worked pretty well because I believe they don't have a bright cap on them on the tremolo channel, reverb channel, which helps greatly with, you know, making it sort of friendly. I know they made those amps with pedals in mind and stuff. So those would be some that you could pick and check out for sure. Let's see. I'm going to go back up to the top of the chat. Oh, well, just getting started here. I just want to address something really quick, and I won't touch on it too much because I don't think it's mainly what you guys come here for. But I just want to talk about the video I put up this week talking about copyright law and some of the things that folks have been dealing with copyright strikes, copyright claims on their channels and stuff like that. So it's been a good discussion. Part of the problem with putting up a video about it, I guess, is that there is no discussion. It's one person's sort of opinion, and then in the comments below, things get discussed. So what I would propose is actually ultimately maybe having some sort of like maybe Google Hangouts live stream or something like that, where a few people can get together and talk about it. And I'll confess, I'm not very sophisticated when it comes to this, like the ins and outs of copyright law and understanding it and stuff like that. But it all started with I saw two videos, watched them quickly through, and it was Paul Davids and a guy named The Guitologist. And you know, Guitologist video was saying, you know, there's been these copyright strikes against everybody's videos, and he was sort of making the point that you guys that do pedal demos and play Mississippi Queen or something as part of your demo are now going to get, you know, look out, because you're going to have people coming after your videos and copyright strikes, and or you know, the lesser version of that would be just a copyright claim, where you'd then be sharing the revenue generated by the video with the copyright owner. And I was also watching Paul David's video. And now, evidently, I didn't really understand the ins and outs of what he's been going through, but UMG, Universal Music Groups, have evidently been making a lot of claims. You know, like it seems like they're kind of targeting his channel, and maybe that's happening with a few other YouTubers. You know, he'll play a little riff from a song in a video that's 45 minutes long, you know, a bar or two of a riff, and then whatever song that's from, the copyright owner would be, you know, placing a claim against his channel, even to the point where he played at one point, I guess, a D sus2 chord or something, just a single chord, and there was a copyright claim against his video saying, oh, that's the, you know, I guess the opening chord from some song or so. You know, it was just like this crazy level of enforcement or whatever, you know. So somebody's just up in the top chat, so I'll address that and then get back to the what I was talking about. It's Claus. He says, thank you for your content. Great tips and demos. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Anyway, so with Paul's videos, I love the videos that guy makes. He's got a great channel. Paul David's is a huge channel, you know, because he's great at what he does. He makes really terrific educational videos. I like his whole thing. I like the way he plays. I like his demeanor and the way he speaks about things. And so, anyway, I was just saying he could make a video about anything and I would watch. That was kind of my point. Like if it meant avoiding, you know, only playing original content, then, you know, not touching on cover songs and stuff, I would be happy to watch that. And then my point with the Guitologist video was, well, don't play Mississippi Queen in the demo videos, then play your own stuff and you'll avoid that issue altogether, which has worked well for me. More Guitars is in the top chat. I'm going to get to you just in a sec there. I'll just finish my thought on this, More Guitars. So I got a message from Rick Beato today, whose channel I adore. And I consider Rick a friend now after having met him at GitCon last year and spending some time with him, making some videos together and stuff. He's a fantastic guy and a wealth of knowledge, and I love his channel and what he does. He was sort of taking exception with the video that I'd put up, saying, Pete, in this one instance, I have to disagree with you. You know, it's an overly simple. My point was, let's do more original music in videos, and then we'll help to avoid this problem. He said, that works for you and your channel, but, you know, I've built a channel on, you know, he primarily, he does all kinds of stuff, but one of the things he does, and he does it so well, is sort of song analysis. And, you know, it's instructional, really. He's teaching, and through song analysis, breaking down songs and classic stuff, he's sort of speaking to the larger, like everything from production to songwriting to with his What Makes This Song Great videos. And I think with him, his point would be that he's providing more than anything a service to whoever the owners of the copyright would be, because he's shining a light on song. Yeah, it absolutely is true. I mean, like he did it. The first one of his videos that I watched that was What Makes This Song Great video was a breakdown of a Pearl Jam song from 10 that I wasn't even, I couldn't even, I've listened to that album, but I didn't remember the song. And his breakdown of the song made me appreciate the song more and want to go listen more to you know, that album, their material, and you know, get deeper into it, because he did such a great job on the video. So that's absolutely true. And I think that, you know, this is something I don't have a lot of knowledge about, but fair use laws governing, you know, basically educational you know, content. But if you're teaching, if you're doing song analysis, breakdown, fair use copyright laws are there in place to kind of allow for teaching and analysis of this material from a sort of historical perspective, in order to, you know, inform future generations about, you know, where we came from. And so that's why those laws were put on the books in the first place, I assume. And somebody else in a comment on my video said, you know, these laws need to be defended. You can't just lie down and take it when there's being, you know, abuse. These laws are on the books for a reason, and if you do that, you know, you're just by writing. They were making the point that my answer is a simplistic solution that isn't really a solution, you know, and I think that's fair, you know. So I didn't mean to offend Rick or Paul. I mean, these guys, they've got wonderful channels, and yes, I think in the broad picture, fair use, you know, laws should be defended, and these guys should be able to make the videos that they want. I think there's got to be a solution there, you know. I still stand by my point that it'd be great to see more original music, you know, more original content, and I just get worried a little bit about the cover song thing, and there being so much focus on covers, and playing covers on YouTube, or teaching covers. So it's different. I've done that, right? I did a video last week, Angus Young, breakdown of a couple different solos and stuff. So obviously I'm a part of that too, and I agree that it's got to be defended. So I hope I didn't offend Rick or Paul Davids or any of those guys. They do wonderful videos, and I love their channels. And I agree. I'll walk back on my thing a little bit. I hadn't seen Rick's video about the subject, by the way, when I put mine up. I just watched Paul David's video and the Guitologist video, so I was more responding to, I guess, to that, playing Mississippi Queen in a pedal demo video or something, and that sort of thing. Anyways, okay, so top chat. Let me get to you guys a little bit here, so that I'm not missing out. Let's see. I gotta go through my more guitars. Yeah, I had first 2 gigs this week, used amps DI to board PA and sounded terrible. Amp was a Mesa TC50. Would I recommend the Torpedo Cab M? Yeah, that'll be a big improvement. Yes, you could run right through the Torpedo Cab M while still running to your amp speaker, and then send that line to the front of house, and it's going to be a big improvement. You just have to spend some time with it at home to find the cab that works best, for your situation. I found one that I loved in there, in 2 Notes cabs, was because I'm not really too familiar with their online store and all their different cabinets and stuff like that, except for recently, spending some time with the Cab M. And I really like that, the Nuno Betancourt NB412, which is a Randall cabinet, and it had greenbacks in it. Whatever they did with that cabinet, I used the 421 mic only, and you can hear it in my demo video of the Cab M, and I thought it sounded just terrific. Really, really great. Anyway, let's see here. I just seen something in the comments. Greco Guitar Dude says people, and especially artists, need to humble up a little. Fucking greedy wankers, he says. I don't agree with that. I get what you're saying, but it's not the artists. This is UMG. This is great big corporations going after okay. There is the artists that are, and we know who they are. There's some artists that are super protective over their, kind of militant about supporting the copyright laws and stuff. But we have to view that as a reflection on what's happened in the music business, because if you're in their shoes, you've seen basically the bottom fall out of your business, right? And that can't seem right no matter what. Used to be, I've got no problem paying for music. I really don't. Used to be that was the norm, and then that just kind of went by the wayside. And they're not greedy. Really, they're just trying to have a system that's fair, I think, at the end of the day. So, because otherwise we're going to end up in it's like, there's if you talk to some of these guys, and I know some of these people, like some of the, you know what I'm talking about, the big famous, if you talk to them, they're like, why should I even make music now? Like, it's like, why I can't, the way they're used to recording too, which this is valid. The way they're used to recording is going in a big studio with a great producer and a top-notch crack team and spending a lot of money to make a record. It's time, it's money, everybody's getting paid, and it's all done by the books, union sessions and stuff like that. You're hiring the best musicians, and that's how you make that great work. Things are a little different now with, young artists. Like I've been keep talking about Billie Eilish, who's been, recording in her bedroom or whatever with her brother for a few years, putting songs up on SoundCloud. And now she's just becoming the biggest thing. So things are being done differently now. But imagine being one of those people that made records that way, right? We're talking here about the Eagles, Steely Dan, artists like this, right? That made these incredible recordings. And then they see the bottom fall out of their situation. And they're like, wait a minute, like, why? Where's the incentive for me to go do stuff now? If I, they're not going to change the way that they, they don't want to start doing bedroom recordings and stuff like that so that they can change with the times. We're talking about guys that are in their 60s and 70s here. They're just trying to protect whatever system there was there that they had some success under, I think. And that's fair, I don't have you have to like big picture, I think. This is complicated stuff because I feel like it's the Wild West. I feel like what's going on with YouTube right now and Paul David's situation with 46 copyright strikes against his channel all of a sudden stuff, and somebody trying to claim a DSUS2 chord. This is crazy. You know, it's the Wild West, and it's like it needs to be addressed and fixed because, you know, that's not the solution either. So anyway, Kids on a Leash is up in the top chat. He says, I believe we should, including the non-music channels, get money together in order to sue Warner and UMG who abuse the system. Well, there's definitely, you know, a case to be made that obviously what I just said, there's something, you know, when it comes to fair use laws and, you know, it needs to be addressed. Like, I don't understand why there can't be a tab when you're going to upload a YouTube video and you're considering monetizing it. You know, there's a button that says, you know, I think it's still the same. I can't even remember right now, but there's a button that said, this video is my cover of an original song or something like that, where you're, you know, and then that, you know, you're admitting that you're performing a cover song, and then you're going to share the revenue or whatever with the, as long as it's an approved thing, that they've gone along with it. Why can't there be a tab that you would click that says, this is, you know, breakdown or analysis for educational purposes of a copyrighted musical work or something like that? You know, there should be another tab there that sort of addresses the fair use situation for education. You know, having said all this, I mean, I got a strike when I put up my Angus Young instructional video. Not a strike, excuse me. I got to keep it's the copyright strikes are really bad and can affect your channel in a massive negative way. I got a copyright claim when as soon as I uploaded the Angus Young thing, because I played Hell's Bells in there. You know, there was a portion of the entire guitar solo where I was playing the entire thing. It was over a backing track. It wasn't over the original recording, but it was Hell's Bells. Actually, I have no problem. And I think even Rick Beato in his video, after I watched it after putting up mine this week, he said, you know, I got no problem if they want to take the, you know, whatever, that's fine, but don't block my video and take it off. And I think that's his point. I totally agree with him. I mean, don't block the video and take it down. When it's a song analysis and just shining a light on what he thinks is a great song. That doesn't make any sense. You know, you're trying to, it is a little Wild West because you're including maybe some, you know, of the original recording or whatever, or maybe a live version recording in the video, but it shouldn't be this overly simplistic. Well, then block that video and take it down. It's like, no, he's actually doing you a service because he's shining a light on a song that now people might go and buy on iTunes, or, you know, at least stream on Spotify or Apple Music or something, so that somebody can make 0.00001 cent of a cent. Tom is up in the top chat and he says, rename the super chat to the Copyright Claim Coffee Fund. I like that, Tom. That's good. Anyway, Jennifer is in the top chat and she says, sounds like they're targeting YouTube influencers, nothing like media to squash the creative of media. Yeah. It definitely seems like Paul was a victim of, you know, somebody was getting overzealous over at UMG, and maybe Rick as well, you know. Not really sure, but it doesn't seem right what's happened to those guys, that's for sure. And if I in any way, shape, or form can be a part of a solution to that, I would gladly be on board. There is an attorney that I know that was in touch with YouTube's attorneys recently, and I know this guy personally, and I thought about maybe sending him an email and asking him his opinion on, because he's at least knows people at YouTube's legal department, and what, you know, maybe there's something to be explored. I don't know. Charles is in the top chat. He says, hey, Pete, delay question. Given a song's tempo and if you have a pedal with tap tempo with subdivisions, how do you go about setting it up for an edge delay? The edges delay is kind of interesting. What he primarily does is dotted eighth thing, but it's also really dotted eighth blended with a quarter many times. So if you can get a dotted eighth, that's the edge thing. But a dotted eighth blended with a quarter, you know, so that you've got both of those delay subdivisions going on, will really give you the character that the edge does. I don't know how he did it originally. If he used two delays or stereo delay, he might have used something like a, you know, one of those Roland. Or, sorry, not the Korg was his SDD 3000, I think it was called. I think you could do that on that unit with the two different subdivisions. Maybe that's what he used. But as I understand it, that's his primary, you know, the dotted eighth and a quarter are the subdivisions. Now, back up to the top here. I'm going to go through some of the questions in the regular chat window here and try and address a bunch of them really quickly. Came across an old Randall catalog from 2006, which shows you as a featured artist, Ben Jard says. That's true. What's the story? I used, when I was in the band 40 Foot Echo, I used one of those M4 preamps and a RT250 power amp in a 12-space rack. And I did all the work with 40 Foot Echo with that setup. I also used it with Draco Rosa for a while, the next artist that I was touring with. So for a few years there, I was playing the Randall preamp. It wasn't called an M4. That was the Egnator version. I can't remember what they called it, Randall. Later on, I got the Egnator version, and I used it, which is what the Randall was based off of. And I used the Egnator version for, let me think, latter part of when I was. Did I use it with Chris Cornell? I think I did. For maybe some of the latter stuff that, like maybe 2009 tour, I used it for some stuff in conjunction with the PT100, and then I used it with Don Henley and Melissa Etheridge for a while as well, in this 12-space rack I had, and then I decided it was all too complicated, and I just went to one amp. Anyways, so Ed says he's not waiting here for an hour and 45. What does that mean? I know I was late today, guys. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's tough for me to get the hell out of the house and get over here. I was like, oh, I need gas on the way to the studio. Oh, God. I had to stop and do that. I had a bunch of trash I had to throw out. It just held me up. I'll try and be more on it. All right. Ooh, an Explorer, says Ben. Yeah, that was my Explorer in the picture from the beginning of this video. I've had that guitar since 2007. Got it in Canada, actually, from Gibson up in Canada. And I in the middle of touring with Chris that year, I actually got that guitar and started using it on quite a bit of stuff. Okay. Greetings from Ireland, says Stuart. Riley's in the house. He says, hey, everyone. Hi, Pete. What's the difference between a covered versus standard Thornbucker, says James? Very little. The covers that we chose, and this is good to know in general about pickups, if you're considering getting humbuckers and you want to put a cover on it or not. If you get a raw nickel cover, they have very, very little effect on the tone. There was an overall, like a test that we did of chrome covers, gold covers, and nickel covers, and John showed me all the results, and you can hear it with your ears as well. But chrome covers will affect, kind of dull the top end a little bit. Gold is the worst offender. Gold covers really have an effect on the tone of the pickup. You'll notice a little bit of muffled top end going on with the gold covers, in my opinion. They still sound okay. I mean, some people use them. Laurie has a gold cover on the Thornbucker in the bridge position of her Sir T guitar, the purple one that's in the video that's up on my Instagram this week and stuff, in the PT15 video. Anyway, it can be fine, you just have to be aware that it does affect the tone of the pickup. But the nickel covers, barely any change at all. You can barely notice a difference. So that's why we chose them. That's the main reason I chose them. Besides, I like the way they look because they're raw and they get kind of tarnished and stuff like that pretty easily. But anyway, yeah. Don't, like, you can basically, as my point is, don't worry about it affecting the tone. Go ahead and pick the pickup raw, open, the raw nickel or the open coil based on your tonal preference. Based on your, visual preference, what you want. If you want to have a covered pickup or you don't, you can go either way with it, and it's not really going to affect the tone at all. That's my take on it, my position on it, my opinion, but also it's backed up by science. Talk about more about that Destroyer. It's actually an Explorer. So it's a 2007. I love the Destroyers, by the way, the Ibanez version, but it's a Gibson Explorer from 2007. It's all mahogany, and it's got these WB Firewater pickups in it. And it's just a regular run-of-the-mill Explorer. You could buy one of those. It looks like the one Dave Grohl has, I guess. You could buy one of those probably for, I don't know. I mean, those guitars were not expensive back in the day. I think they were under $1,500 brand new. Yeah. I used to play it a lot on, like, I'd start the set with it with Chris Cornell. Would play it on, like, sometimes on Outshined and on Let Me Drown and couple other Soundgarden songs that were the drop D kind of. I probably played it on Sleighs and Bulldozers and stuff like that. I still maintain my black Les Paul is a better sounding guitar, actually, overall. It's just clearer and more, I don't know, it's got it all. And I always thought, well, maybe it's the whole mahogany body thing with there's no maple going on in it, and a little bit different guitar. Yeah. Christopher Post says, I really want a small head and cabinet for my living room. Friedman, should I get a Runt 20 with a 112 cab or Pink Taco 20? I have an open back combo and really want a Marshall style small closed back. A head and cabinet. I'm a big fan of Friedman's. I mean, the Runt is a nice little amp, and so is the Pink Taco 20. I like the Dirty Shirley amps too. Those are all great choices. Consider the PT too. I don't have it in here right now because I took it to a session yesterday actually, but the new PT 15 with a 112 would be awesome. 3 channels, with the option to use it, direct and all that. So you could, or even through headphones, so you get some really quiet, if you want to practice in the living room while someone else is watching TV, you can do that with that amp. So, but all those would be great amps, great choices. By the way, we're on track for June with the PT 15. So it's all good. Like the June release is looking like, we're gearing up for, of course, they have to order chassis and parts like crazy, transformers. And so it's all been scheduled out and stuff like that. And it's all looking good. So I took the amp to a session yesterday, which is really cool where's my phone? I wanted to show you guys a picture. Damn it. I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. Haha, right in front of my face. I took it to a session at El Dorado here in LA and used it. There it is, sitting there with a Neve console in the background. And so I said to the engineer when I got in there, I said, you got to try this. Let me just plug this in direct and see what you think, because he had a cab all mic'd up in the other room and stuff and ready to go. And he was like, I don't want to like it, but okay. And then he tried it, and that's what we used for the whole session. He was like, all right, how much is it? I love that thing. I got to get one. He was all about it afterwards. So success. And it was great. I mean, I literally went in there and set up, pulled out a couple guitars. I brought the HX effects, that little rig I demoed this week, Helix HX effects with the PT15, and plugged it all in. We were recording within 20 minutes or something. And I was out of there in 2 hours and laid down a solo and a bunch of sort of auxiliary guitar parts and stuff. And it was great. Just so fast and easy. And it's kind of funny. Once we plugged it in and I got a part going, everybody forgot about that like dialing in a sound and stuff. And it was like, oh, that's a cool, okay. And then like, just, okay, yeah, what if you did a dotted eighth delay there kind of thing? And then can you do a swelled delay part? And we just forgot, like everybody there was no more mention about the tone and brighter or dark, maybe a little bit throughout but nobody was thinking about miking or any of that stuff anymore. It was all about the parts and the song. That's a great sign, I think, that it just went straight to the music, because it's like, well, that's taken care of. That's a good sound, and let's just move on with tracking music. Eric's up in the top chat. He says, given all this blocking enforcement activity and demonetization of music in general, should bands that perform covers be concerned? Or do you mean in public or on YouTube? On YouTube, it's a concern. But in public, it's not a concern, because that system's been in place forever. That's the thing, is it's like, when you're performing in clubs or this is why it's kind of the Wild West, because it's like the issue is this, I think, is that with YouTube, it's a music delivery service now. So it's not unlike television or the radio, in that it's a streaming delivery service for music. So where it gets gray area is because there's these fair use, situations where you can, teach and analyze music and things like that, and that's covered under fair use copyright laws. And how that gets implemented and enforced on YouTube, which is also a music delivery service, not unlike iTunes or something, right? I mean, it's similar in that, it's basically like, it's just a vehicle, the radio, television, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. So it's like, now it's like, how do you make these distinctions? That's why I say it's the Wild West, because it's like, how do you rein it in and and come up with something that's fair for everybody, and just a system where people know what to expect. I think that's kind of the main problem too, is that folks don't know what to expect all the time. I mean, you don't want to get in trouble, right? Like, who wants to put in a whole bunch of time, like making a YouTube video, and effort just to get it, a strike against your channel, or have it demonetized or something? That's like, well, that's okay, but still, it'd be like, if there's this point that Paul David's made where there's one piece of a video that was 45 minutes long or whatever, and it was this one little riff, and they take the revenue stream for the entire video, the revenue that's generated by that video for that one little segment of the video. That's clearly not fair. I mean, when it's just like this one little reference to a riff, and then he's missing out on revenue for a video that he created, putting in his own time and effort to do it. And, it's got 1 million views or something like that. I mean, it's a sizable, little chunk of change that they're making a claim to. It's not fair. And that's clearly wrong and needs to be addressed. So I don't want to see it as like that there's no answer, though. There's got to be an answer to this, there's got to be a way to, yes, UMG, big company, lawyers, they're banking on nobody being able to deal with, defending themselves against, a big corporation like that. But I don't want to believe that that's true. I think there's got to be an answer to this, although it's a pain in the ass. Let's see, up in the top chat there, Abhisik. Hope I'm saying your name right, dude. I'm sorry. Abhisik. I'm really sorry if I'm terrible. I can't even pronounce something like Kraken or Kraken, as you guys know from my video this week. Hey, Pete, just want to ask, what type of amps should I buy for my HSS Strat, spanky clean and medium high gain distortion, as a small band guitarist? I'm going to say the PT15 IR, of course, because I feel like we made the ultimate amp for your situation with clean and distortion. Sounds so damn good, dude. You got to try it, honestly. But there's other stuff out there too. You can look at, of course. Spanky clean and medium high gain, though, there's really not that many, to be honest. So I'm going to say the PT15. That's going to be my answer, because it'll do spanky clean and it'll do medium high gain and super high gain and do it really, really, really well. Christopher Crooms is in the top chat, and he says, Pete, thanks for being here today. Do you recommend using a buffer from your pedal board effects send to a guitar amp's return if the distance is great? It's a great question for sure, whether you would buffer the signal coming out of the amps. So you're saying buffer from your pedal board's effects send to a guitar amp's return. It can't hurt. It's probably a good idea. It's a great question in your particular situation with whatever amp you have. You should determine, for example, like our amps, the SUR amps are really properly buffered. You're not going to run into any troubles because the effects loop's properly buffered. And you might have an amp where the effects loop is high quality and properly buffered as well, but you might not. So it's really amplifier dependent, and it's never a bad thing to try. If you've got something you can use as a buffer, and you could experiment and see if you hear a difference. If there's like tone loop, effect loop suck going on, you feel like it's not as good when you've got your effects patched in, try patching in a buffer, both on the, effects send going to the pedal board, and then on the return going in. My guess is it'd probably be better to do it on the return going back to the amp, but you want to try it and just see, there's many instances where I've asked Sir about that. Like, well, would a buffer solve this problem with this particular amp? And he said, yeah, that would probably do it. Many pedals that people use in loops like Strymons and, Eventides, you can put them into buffered bypass, line 6. Put them in a buffered bypass mode where the buffer's always on, and that's probably a good thing to do, as a general rule, to at least try it. If you've got one of those pedals or access to one, try it and see if you hear a difference. I like to patch things in. I did this with the HX effects this week. I like to patch it into the loop, have everything bypassed, and then pull the cables in and out of the loop and just listen, with clean sound, distortion sound, playing as static a thing as I can. You could even record into a looper so that you're not playing the guitar and there's some variance in the part that you're playing, record into a ditto looper or something, play the loop, and then just pull the effect in and out of the, you can do things like in and out of the effects loop on your amp and see if you hear a difference, and experiment with putting a buffer in there if needed, as well as levels and things, experiment with setting levels. But yeah, that could, long story short, that could be definitely beneficial. Moving down through the chat here. Explorers are so 80s, says Thomas. Yeah, but they're super cool. Come on. I think the guy from No Doubt played one in the 90s. So did Dave Grohl played an Explorer a lot. I remember seeing a black one just like mine. They're cool. The guy from the Killers, he plays an Explorer. And that was post all that too. I think it's like a natural finish one. I think it's super cool. Any plans for you to tour your solo stuff or coming to the Northeast? I'm trying to get it. That's actually why I'm putting together that little rig, because I'm starting to rehearse and practice my own songs. I want to put together like a set of songs. I've talked a little bit about doing some touring with a friend of mine that we've trying to formulate a plan on a way that we can make it work for both of us. He's another guitar player that's putting out a record that's going to be really great, and it's similar to my music. And he said, why don't we do something together? And he's based in Europe. So I'm trying to figure out, be a thing where maybe I could go over there and we would use the same band and then play, basically be one band, but we'd play each other's music. I thought it was a great idea. And a way to do it kind of, where we're not traveling with two bands, and a way to kind of consolidate our resources and stuff and do a cool show, and just make a great night of guitar music. So anyway, that's why I was putting together the little rig, seeing if can I make a small rig that sounds great where I can get everything I need out of it. So he's busy all year doing some touring stuff, but maybe later in the year towards the fall or next winter, that's what he was thinking. I'm like, I'd be down with that. Why not get up there and do it? Word up from Minneapolis, says Dan. What's up? What's happening? Ben Coombs is in the house. Shauna Marie is in the house. I got a BA Hot Fuzz per your recommendation, says John. So good. Thanks. I love that thing. It's great. Really, really terrific. Terrific fuzz. If you guys haven't tried that one, check it out. I'm a big fan. It's got a treble booster in it as well as a fuzz. That's what's cool. And when you combine them and turn them on at the same time, it's amazing sounding. Really great. Looking for a Dreadnought guitar D28 style, says John. Any you like other than the Martin, or is that your favorite? Well, it's always great to go to the source, I think. It's kind of that thing, but there's tons of other, I've played a lot of boutique-y kind of, what are some of the, I'm such an idiot when it comes to acoustic guitars, to be honest. I mean, even like Taylor and stuff makes Dreadnought style instruments that are similar, to D28. You got to just try, a whole bunch of different ones. It's a great thing to look for an old one too. I feel like, to be honest, that with acoustic guitars, you almost benefit more buying a vintage one than buying vintage electrics. The tone of vintage acoustic guitars, if you find a good one, is unbelievable. Some of them sound like a cannon. You just like old D28s, or some of my favorites are Gibson J50s and J45s. I had a 1959 Gibson J50 that was, and it just hurts me to even think about talking about this because I sold it, and it's so stupid that I sold that guitar. But the reality is I could actually buy another one right now, and they're not that expensive. Like when you compare, they're kind of the price of like a boutique acoustic guitar. And I think I could probably get one for $4 or $5 grand, something like that. Now I paid, I think it was $1,800 when I got it in the 90s at some point. And then I sold it, 4 or 5 years later. But that guitar, oh my God, the blow end, the bloom on, you'd hit the low E string and it just went, wow. And it was something about it just had this clarity. If you look in a lot of those older Gibson guitars, and I'm no expert in acoustic guitar construction, but the bracings on the guitars are very, very thin. And I'm sure they're not that strong, and they probably ran into all kinds of problems with them. But, the brace, it's the scalloped bracing where they're just super thin. And there's something about those. When you look in newer guitars, they've got these thicker bracings. The bracing is wider, and it doesn't sort of scallop to a point like the ones on those old Gibsons do. And it just, whenever, I don't know, there's something about the old ones. They sound like the bloom and the tone is just, it's unbelievable. Like I almost like those old Gibsons more than the D18s and D28s and stuff I played. Those are great too. But a good old D28 or D18, D18s are kind of the sleepers too because they're cheaper. But you look for, play some old ones and see if you can find a nice old one that falls into a reasonable price range that But the late 60s ones are just unbelievable. They've all got Brazilian rosewood boards and stuff like that, but when they could still use those. Greetings from Alberta, says Mudweiser, close to your old stomping ground. Sunny and 12 degrees Celsius. That's not so bad. That sounds like a pretty good day up there. Definitely. It's spring. Good morning from beautiful Vancouver, says Daniel. What's up, man? Hope you're well. Let's see. Daniel says, cool coffee cup. I'm using my Pete Thorn coffee cup today. Available from my Teespring store. I got to promote my merch. Bought one myself. Paid full pop. I guess I made money off paying by buying my own cup. I don't know. Anyway. Let's see. How do you set your TC Sentry noise gate when you're recording to clean up your mixes? Well, if I look at it right now, I can just show you because it's right here. I don't know if these knobs have been moved at all, but that's where I had it set the last time. You could take a screenshot or something of the video. Basically, what I always do is I have it set to gate when I kind of roll the volume down on the guitar, and then I'll attack, and then it'll open, and then it'll close. Like I want to use the minimum amount of it as necessary. Because I really don't like noise gates, but this one's pretty good. And I basically want to make it as unobtrusive as possible, and it's just a matter of turning the knobs until that happens. When I stop playing and I mute the strings, I want the gate to close relatively quickly. But it doesn't have to be like metal crazy, like some metal guys that use gates and have, because I do play, I want notes to sustain and stuff, and I want it to be, I don't want it to cut off the tail of notes. That's the main thing. I don't like hearing them work. I want it to be kind of unobtrusive, and that only comes, I don't even really, I don't have like a stock setting just for whatever I'm doing at the time. If you pick up a guitar with single coil pickups or you pick up a guitar with humbuckers, it's going to be different because instantly the single coils are going to buzz more, and then you're going to have to reset the threshold and stuff. So really, it's totally guitar dependent and kind of dependent on your room and how much RF and stuff like that is in that sort of thing. So it's hard to come up with just one setting. But I would say just set it to be as sort of transparent as possible. Jack says he's got a JVM 410H Marshall, but he hates carrying around a 412. Will downsizing to a 212 change the sound a lot? Would I be better going the modeling route? The modeling route would be a much more drastic, decision. If you're used to the sound of a 412, just getting a good 212 will be, you could go to something. We designed the PT 212. The Sir PT 212 to sound big. It's deep. It's got a real deep cabinet, and it sounds humongous to me. And I don't really feel like I'm missing out when I'm using that. Like, oh, I miss my 412 or anything like that. And the other ones come to mind, like the Bogner oversized 212 always sounded really big to me, but it's almost 3/4 the size of a 412. It's like quite large. So you just want to try different things, but I don't mind a 212 at all, man. That's why I use them. I haven't used a 412 live, come to think of it, on a consistent basis, like in a rig on tour or anything like that, for many, many, many years now. It's been the PT 212 since at least 2014. So I'm cool with the 212. And they're really not that big. Now, the new one that we've got for my amp is really cool too. The horizontal, square cabinet. It looks like a little baby, Marshall 412 or something like that, but the speakers are like that in it. So it's like the old kind of the cabs that Marshall made for the 2061X heads, those 212s with the speakers like that. Great sounding cabinet. I don't want to carry around a 412 anymore either, and nobody wants the volume anyway, or not that the cabinet's loud, but you know what I'm saying. I don't really find the tone of them. Like the tone of a great 412 is a great thing, but I don't feel like I'm deficient when I'm using my cabs or anything like that. No, not really. Anyways, hey Pete, you rock, says Joe. Thanks, man. I was wondering what string gauge do you typically use on acoustic? So I've gone to 11s on acoustic. Is it 11 to 52 or 11 to 50? The Earthwood Ernie balls are the main ones that I've been using for a while. I can't remember what the low string is on that set, but I went to 11s just because my hands are, I can feel it right now. My hands are not they get aggravated by heavy strings, and they're not what they used to be. It's just I'm fine with 11s, to be honest. I think it's 11 to 50 is the Ernie Ball set. So I'm cool with that. Tonally, if I could, I would, maybe if I was recording and I was being real serious about, I'd, maybe throw on a set of 12 to 52, but never heavier than that. Leon's in the top chat. He says, thanks so much for doing these Hangouts. Any tips on dialing in the Fryette PS2 as an attenuator? Sure. So with the Fryette, it's quite a good reactive load, and with the switches in their maximum positions, you're getting the actual impedance curve, proper sort of impedance curve that reflects what a cabinet really looks like. So that's with the two switches are in their maximum positions. Now, having said that, I believe that he put the different positions, which you can knock them down to, a half setting and then off. So when it's off, it's a purely resistive load. In the middle position, you're getting a little bit of a reactive thing, but it's not as much as a real cab. And in the maximum setting, you're getting the full thing. Because it's got a tube power amp built in. So you're asking about using it as an attenuator. Really, it's a load and reamp. But I get what you're saying. You're talking about using it to get your amp's tone at a lower volume. So just know that the tube power amp that's in the thing is also going to create some sort of impedance curve. We don't know what that, like with the cabinet, we don't know what that is. I assume he tried to make a tube power amp that's relatively flat, but it's going to have somewhat of an impedance curve anyway. And so long story short, what I've found is the best tones for me come with probably the switch settings in the half position when I'm using it with his power amp built in going to a cabinet. That just sounds quite pleasing to me. And then he gives you the added, the presence and bright or presence and deep knobs on there, where you can further kind of fine tune the tone and alter the tone. And what it all amounts to is maybe you're not going to get the exact sound of your amp at a super high volume at a lower volume, but you can get a really great sound that's really pleasing and close. And it kind of doesn't matter because it becomes its own thing. It's a really, really great device, I think. And through the switches and through the I guess they're called presence and deep knobs on it. I can't remember because it's not right in front of me. Mine's over there on the floor. But through various settings of those things, you can come up with a really great sound. So I would say try the switch settings on the half position and then use the presence and deep knobs to kind of fine tune the tone from there. And you should come up with something that is pretty reasonable and that you'll be happy with. It's a really good device. My kind of favorite attenuator device that you can attenuate, really load and reamp would be the correct way to describe it. We got 519 people online. That's awesome. Thank you for being here, folks, on your Sunday with me. Happy Sunday, says Brooks. He's in the top chat. Just ordered a Digitech Freakout. Congratulations, because it's one of the most fun pedals I have. I love the Digitech Freakout. Can you talk about how you use yours, where in the signal chain, which harmonic? The way I set up mine is, generally speaking, I can just let me take a look at it here. I have the level knob is up around 10 o'clock. I believe that's the level knob. And then the ramp knob is around 11 o'clock. So the level knob affects the output of the thing. And, when that harmonic comes in, it can really be loud if you're not careful. So start with the level around 9 o'clock and then turn it up from there a little bit. And I go for sort of a natural thing with it. The ramp knob is how fast the harmonic comes in. So that's just dependent on what you want. But I set mine around 11 o'clock to noon, so that it's just kind of where you'd hit a note and then the feedback would come in gradually, like normally it would with a tube amp or whatever, if it was a natural feedback. And then as far as the harmonic knob, I use kind of the top 3 settings on the switch a lot. So one of them is kind of like a natural sort of, I don't know what it's called actually. And where's my glasses here? It's too hard for me to read these days without my little pedals. I'm just going to take a look here. It's called the high setting. There's a natural low setting and then maybe a natural high setting. So you've got the individual positions, like for the root, the third, the fifth, the different kind of harmonic intervals. And then you got a natural low and natural high. And that kind of tends to mimic the sort of natural, feedback that a tube amp would do. And you get kind of the lower harmonic in the natural low or the higher harmonic in the natural high. So I usually use the natural high setting. And that sort of seems like what you want, when you hold a note to feedback in this sort of something, sort of an octave up comes in or whatever, feeding back on top of that. And that works well for me. But don't be afraid to experiment with the also there's a momentary or latched switch on there that allows you. We're talking about the freakout for those that just joined, or the Digitech freakout settings on it. Great pedal that creates feedback in an artificial but very natural sounding way. Anyway, what was I saying? Don't be afraid to experiment with the momentary or latch switch, because sometimes it's fun to play parts almost in an EBO-like way where it's just on all the time and you're not, I use mine mainly to get feedback on specific notes. When I want it, I'll step on it, and that means the switch is in the momentary setting. But in the latch position, it could be fun to do like overdubs and stuff and play a part where you're just holding a note and then it takes off, holding a note and it takes off. This is on all the time, sort of like a sustainer pickup or something. Anyway, great, really, really fun pedal. I don't know if you guys know this, but for those that don't, the Freakout was created when Digitech discovered they had they're a part of the Harman group, which makes, a lot of pro audio gear and PA systems and things like that. And they had an anti-feedback circuit in some of their gear, I assume mixers and things like that, that would target a note that was feeding back, and then it could drop down that frequency, kind of notch it out. And they discovered that when they inverted the algorithm or whatever for that circuit, that it created feedback, of course. And they went, that's cool. Who's feedback useful for? Guitar players. And they made a great pedal. So the Freakout is it's the one video that when I got that thing, and I literally could I remember filming with my iPhone, holding it with my left hand and just playing an open string on the guitar with my right hand and filming the pedal down on the floor and holding it and doing some feedback. And I sent that video to a few guitar player friends of my famous guitar player friends of mine, and they were sold on that. It was like one of the most effective demo videos. They were like, sold, need it, where can I get one? And I put them in touch with the guy at Digitech. Just because it's like that's amazing. Like you're doing that like with no at low volume, and a useful thing for any guitar player, I think. What's my favorite out of the Victory preamps? So I did videos on those Victory preamps this week. The Kraken, which I now know how to pronounce. I think that's right? That was the one that I really like. To me, it's just great. Like the green channel on it does a great medium gain or lower gain distortion tone. And then the high gain does a great thing combined with my amp as I used it with the PT amp. The PT has its more sort of traditional Marshall sort of voice overdrive, and the Kraken had a more like a modern kind of, it's not Marshall-y really. It's like its own thing that it's got going on. It was just really cool. So I quite enjoyed playing it, and it's really good. How often do you come to Austin? It's been a minute. It's from the Noise Factory. Yeah, I haven't been to Austin in a long time. It's because I haven't been doing any U.S. touring. My touring takes me mainly out of the country. It's been France and Japan for the last 5 years. That's been my touring gigs, artist based in those countries. But I used to go to Austin all the time. I probably find myself there once a year at least or something on a tour stop. So I'd love to be doing another U.S. tour one of these days and get out there again, because I kind of miss it. Cracker Barrels and Waffle Houses and Walmarts and the cities across America. One of these days I'll get out there. Let's see. Just watched Rick Beato's vids on Pat Metheny style. Great stuff for those into that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, he's a deep guitar player, Rick, and he's got a great ability to understand. Pat Metheny, man, I loved Pat Metheny growing up. He was one of the, I was a rock and roll kid, but what was that album? I Can See Your House From Here or something. I loved listening to him. I don't know that much about his music, but I had a few of them, and I was a fan. At least peripherally. My teacher, Brian Hughes, when I was growing up, great guitar player, he was really a Metheny aficionado, and he could really play that stuff well. Now that I think about it, I should have asked him more growing up about the Metheny style. Maybe he could have shed some light, because he put out some solo albums that were, he's gone on to do his own thing, but some of his early work was really Metheny influenced, and he really had that sound. The Tone Hunter is up in the top chat. He's in the UK. What's up, man? He says, absolute beginner at home recording. What do I recommend? I tried a Boss BR, and I couldn't get on. So I'm guessing I'm going laptop. Yeah, I mean, any good Mac laptop will have GarageBand already installed. So just get that and start with GarageBand. That's my recommendation. They've made it really easy to move from GarageBand to Logic. I use Logic, and I'm a fan of Logic. I think it's a great DAW. And so if you got to get a laptop anyway, it just simplifies the process, I guess. If you don't want to, you can go with a Windows laptop, obviously, and stuff. But I've used Macs always and been very comfortable with them. I've got issues with Apple and all that, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you just want to make it easy on yourself, I would say get a simple interface. I use UA interfaces. They're great. If you want something more on a budget, the PreSonus stuff is really good, I think. So a PreSonus interface running into a simple Mac laptop running GarageBand, and you should be able to have some fun and, get into some good trouble. Any thoughts on Schecter guitars, says Robin. I don't know that much about him. I did a little video with the fella that did the Sound Spectre Studios, my buddy. I'm spacing on his name right now. Glenn Fricker. And we played Schecter guitars in the video. I think that video is up on his YouTube channel from a couple years ago. And we're having fun with the sustainers and stuff. But that I'm not that familiar with the Schecter line of guitars. Who's in the top chat up there? It's Jennifer. What's up, Jennifer? She says, what advice would you have for aspiring musicians, industry pros that are good at many things but could benefit from narrowing their focus in order to excel? How might you suggest they find their lane? It's a combination of looking towards the future and deciding like where you want to be in 10 years. Because you could be good at many things, but not necessarily enjoy doing them that much. So you need to have a forward thinking sort of approach. Where do you want to be in 10 years? I always remember, what's his name? The motivational speaker. The dude that has all the books out. That's not giving you much information to go on. What the hell's that guy's name? I can't remember his name. Anthony, what's his name? Isn't that his name? Anyway, I don't know. This guy that everybody would know if I could remember his name. God, sometimes I think I'm losing it. But anyway, he had the point that like you're going to end up somewhere in 10 years. So, where where if you want to get to that place, you have the, you to take things and take control at any time and make some decisions, or you can just sort of drift about. Right. And he also had a great point that he was making about driving. If a race driver is driving a skid car, and you're headed towards there's two different ways when you're driving a skid car. It's like a race training thing where you're driving this car, and then an instructor sitting beside you can push a thing that makes the car skid. And you can go like this and throw your arms up and head into the wall, or you can steer out of it, right? And steer out of the skid. That always stuck with me. Like you have to make these conscious decisions to, when you can sense like something coming. I guess with me, it's like the thing that I've actively tried to do is realize that, okay, I can't maybe tour forever and do what I did at the beginning of my sort of professional music career, getting signed in bands and stuff, and then touring and, getting gigs as a sideman. Like that could probably only go on so long, to a point where it's just like, okay, this isn't reasonable once you get into your 60s or, maybe, I know guys that do it in their 60s, but it gets to the point where it's like, how long are you really going to want to, you can't go out for 6 months on a tour when you're 60 something, right? Like who wants to do that at that age? So you got to diversify and come up with some other means. So thinking about those things in your 30s and your 40s and kind of trying to see a path, it's hard to know where it's all going really, but at least you can do your best to try and stay ahead of the curve. That's so broad, but I don't know. That's what I've tried to do. And that's part of me working on YouTube and building this channel, and also becoming more involved with things like design with manufacturers, things like the PT guitar and amps, pickups and things like that, like headed down that road a little bit and exploring those things, as well as just getting gigs with people touring as a sideman, right? So actively thinking about what are some ways I can diversify and use the skills that I have, which, yes, I play guitar and, write songs and stuff like that. But also I've got a musical instrument, in the MI, background. I've worked in music shops and things like that. So I've got that skill set. Doing writing for Premier Guitar and things like that. I've got that skill set. How can I utilize all of these things to move forward into the future? And maybe not do some of the things that I don't enjoy so much. Like, might start focusing as I get older more on the things that I really enjoy, and that I can sort of diversify and move as I get older. These will be viable things that, like, you don't have to be 22 to, I don't have to be a, Instagram pop star or whatever to do some of these things. It's like, no, you can, utilize some of the skills and knowledge you've gained over the years in order to move forward, working closer with companies like Sir or something like that, and helping to design things for younger guitar players. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. That was a rant. Holy hell. Banana Hammock says, good morning. What's up? What's Jimmy doing on the floor? So Jimmy back there. Jimmy, man, I'm telling you. Let me show you. Oh, my telly's, well, it's put away in the gig bag back there. It's going to take too long to get it. Jimmy fell down off the wall this week and managed to do very little damage, but did bend the high E string tuner on my 66 telly, which is original. And then I thought about it, and I thought, I kind of like that the ghost of Jimmy still wants to abuse vintage Fender guitars. And he came down and took out that tuner. It still works. It's just bent. I'm going to take it to John and see if he'll put it back for me and fix it so that it's like good as new. But that's what happened. And it's my own fault. I didn't secure that up on the wall in a proper fashion, and I paid the price. So, but luckily it was minimal damage done, really. Jimmy will be back up there soon. Braxall says, should I go with HX Stomp as an effect pedal for my board and possible in using for emergency for an amp, or should I get 2 notes, LeClean and Cab M, and something else other than the HX Stomp? It's hard. These things are tough, because you could try them and think like, well, you could try the HX Stomp and the Cab M and the LeClean and think, well, I like the tone of the HX Stomp better than these things. Or you could try the LeClean and Cab M and go, well, this system kicks the shit for me out of the HX Stomp. It's hard to say, I love the compact thing that you get with the HX Stomp, and the fact that it'll do amp modeling and everything in that one little pedal. It's so tiny. So that for me, that is a big part of the decision. One piece of gear that's so small that can do so many things. The different amp models, as well as the impulse responses, as well as it could just be a delay pedal. I love that they've packed all that into that little thing. I do. Now, Cab M is a great product, and I don't know that much about the LeClean. I've tried those preamps a little bit, but not that much. So, the Cab M is great, though. I did a review of it recently. And it just depends on your application. It's tough. I do think there's a lot to be said for the Helix way to go. Zach says, what's your take on a shorter neck scale on a Strat body type? I know Larry Carlton used to use one. He did. That's right. He used a short scale on those Valley Arts guitars, which were pretty cool looking. Like, remember they were kind of cream finish, and he used a short scale. For me, to be honest, like when I play, I want a Les Paul to be a Les Paul, and I want a Strat to be a Strat. That's my honest take on it. It's kind of why I think maybe the Fender Jaguar was the maybe least popular of their solid bodies. I mean, they have a niche thing and they're cool, and I would like one, actually. I'd like the Johnny Marr one. But, there's something with the short scale where the tone's a little different. It's not as snappy or whatever, and the longer scale has that snappy Fendery thing, and the shorter scale is a little squishier, has a different thing, feel and tone. And I sort of like my Fenders to be Fenders or whatever, that style of guitar. And I like my Gibsons to be Gibsons, that style of guitar. So that's just my take on it. But yeah, Larry, that's obviously some people have played a Jaguar as their primary guitar, so it's different strokes for different folks. Just for me, that's my take on it. Let's see here. I have great. So you want to be, oh, wow, that's an acronym, eh? Great. So you want to be a pro musician last episode, says TMIT73. Thank you. It was all about diversification. Did you guys watch that one this week? Check it out. If you didn't, I was talking about how diversity can help you through adversity. It's a sort of deep, long subject, broad topic, but hopefully somebody got something out of that video this week. T-Mit says he liked it. Have a Dr. Z112 cab with G12M65, and I cannot seem to bond with the mid-range, says John Hutch. Any suggestions on others to try? It's a 112 cab with a G12M65. I would say that the mids are probably a bit aggressive in a cabinet like that, and I would probably try the Creamback H75 in that cabinet and see what you think. Can't guarantee you're going to like it, but give that a try. Another one I would try is maybe something like a Creamback, the Celestion Creamback Alnico. That could sound really good. Because it's a Dr. Z112, I'm assuming you're not like doing metal and stuff. Maybe, you're more like mid-gain living in that. Maybe the two I would suggest, and they're quite different, but they're both going to give you a different thing from what you've got, are the Creamback and a H75. Creamback H75 and Alnico Cream. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. Alnico Cream and the Creamback H75. Those are the two that I would recommend you give them a listen, give them a try. Have I ever used Jim Wagner pickups? Yeah, I had a set of the WCR Crossroads in my Les Paul for a few years. Back when I was touring with Melissa Etheridge, that's what I had in that guitar, I remember. They were pretty cool. I don't remember them that well. I seem to remember, like, they sounded great, like, especially gainy. I don't know if they were as clear as my Thornbucker pickups. I wanted a maybe even lower gain, like clearer thing than what I was getting. And that, yeah, I guess I changed out the Crossroads and then put the Thornbuckers in the Les Paul, because that particular Les Paul in my 2009, that was the guitar that we used as a sort of a test bed Les Paul for Thornbuckers. When we were developing the Thornbuckers, we had that guitar, and we also had a Classic S that we were using with one in the bridge position. So we were using the Les Paul to try. We were assuming that people would buy those guitars for a Les Paul. So I was like, well, let's just use my historic R9 as a kind of test guitar for these pickups. Attempted to physically build my own cab, says the Tired Horizon. Have you ever had custom cabs made? I haven't. Yeah, I have custom. Okay, so I specifically didn't have them made, but my main kind of Marshall B cabinet that's here, 412, that I have here at the studio, is a blockhead cab, and a friend of mine had it made for me, and then gave it to me as a gift, actually. So, which was a really nice gift. It was Gene from Ultrasound in New York City, great guy that had this terrific rehearsal studio for many years, Ultrasound, with all these vintage and incredible amplifiers, Dumbles, and had 5 train wrecks, 5 express train wrecks, amazing. Anyway, he gave me as a gift a blockhead cab and also a 410 cabinet that has blues in it. Open back 410, kind of an odd small 412, small size, open back with Celestion blues. So those are custom cabinets. And then when you say, have I ever had custom cabs made? I mean, I guess, my PT cab was a custom cab that we designed. Both versions of it now are ones that we had built, and we listened to a couple different versions and honed in on the exact spec. So those are custom cabs that we now make available, that were, ones that John and I kind of conferred on and stuff, and the dimensions and what we were going for. Cabinet builder build them up, and we'd listen and say, pretty cool, let's try like another inch this way or whatever in the dimensions, and finally settled on what we've got. So something that needs to be addressed is, why is Hendrix on the floor? I know, because Jimmy fell down this week. Jimmy fell down. I gotta drill some holes in that wall back. There's concrete. That was the issue. So I gotta just get a concrete drill bit and get some holes drilled in the wall so Jimmy can go back up. Jimmy wasn't happy up there. He wanted to mess up my telly. He wanted to play. Okay. Always think that the best clean amps make the best pedal friendly amps. Sometimes, yeah. That's Bam. How do you say, Sean? Bam Mosey. Generally speaking, that can be true, but sometimes the sparkly mid-scooped clean amps can be a little crazy with certain pedals due to the bright caps and stuff on some vintage Fenders and things. So sometimes I find the most neutral clean amps that sound a little flat or boring can be the best sort of distortion or fuzz pedal amps. Because when you think about it, when you're putting a distortion into a clean sound, it kind of blows up the pedal. It accentuates, whatever that pedal's doing. And it amplifies it, and so whatever EQ curve or whatever's happening in the front end of that amplifier, it just blows that up into a much bigger sound when you put a fuzz or distortion into it. So sometimes when you've got a clean sound that's very, very flat, that tends to not accentuate one frequency over another too much, that can be the most. This is why you'll see guys like Ola England, great YouTuber. He many times will take distortion pedals and run them into the effect return of, I think his amp's like a Randall Satan or something, right? And he'll do that where he tries. So essentially, the pedal becomes the preamp, and he likes that. And the reason, I think, is because the power amps are generally very flat in comparison to the preamp of a guitar amplifier that can really accentuate certain things more or less. So you're really just hearing the pedal going into, but essentially what you're doing when you put a pedal in the front of an amp, you're in a combination of those two things, and the amp can really have a big effect, and it can be a great effect. I like running the pedals in the front end of an amp because I want the preamp shaping, I want its tonal character and color. So hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes with a lot of pedals, the normal kind of flat response preamps can be a more pleasing thing, I think. Randy Wilcox is up in the top chat. He says, happy Sunday. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thanks for being here. And Terry's up in the top chat. What's up, dude? He says, what do you recommend for a headphone solution sub $100? I want to use my pedal board, cheap solid state amp or headphone pedal more. Yeah, get the Moore thing. If you want to go cheaper, get the little Moore radar and run your pedal board with some sort of preampy guitar pedal and some overdrives into the Moore with a good IR. It's got a headphone amp on it, right? That'll work fine. Sub $100. I don't know how much. I don't think it's under $100, but it's pretty close, isn't it? The Moore radar. I think that'll work fine for you. Okay, what else we got here? Aaron Song says he watched Paul David's video on the copywriting stuff, and it's crazy stuff. Yeah, it is crazy stuff. It needs to be figured out. Legalities, how these laws, get confusing, says Aaron, and there are very blurry details on what can and can't be used. That's right. And as I was saying, I think it's the Wild West, and it just needs to be addressed and figured out. It should be something that's nailed down. Inspired Victory is up in the top chat. Thank you, good sir. Thank you guys for doing the top chat. I really appreciate it. You guys are too kind. I'll have a coffee on you. What are your thoughts on active pickups? Fishman Fluence is making waves in the music industry. I agree. The Fishman Fluence seems to be pretty great. I've never tried them myself. They do strike me as really interesting. I've heard great things from folks like Dave Friedman and Steve Stevens, I think, mentioned that he thought they were really good. I saw Satchel this week. I saw it come by. Satchel, my old friend, good friend Russ from Steel Panther. And he has them in his custom Charvel signature model. They seem like they're really great. So I haven't tried them, though, so I can't offer. I've just heard good things. I can say that I've heard good things from Friedman and from Steve Stevens, and they seem like they're pretty neat. Yeah, it would be an interesting thing to get an entertainment or copyright lawyer on a panel for this topic, says Ben Coombs. I totally agree, Ben. That's 100% right. I would love to do a round table kind of, like, wouldn't it be great to get a video with Paul Davids and Rick Beato and a copyright lawyer, maybe somebody from YouTube and maybe somebody from UMG, and talk it out. I think so. Yeah, I think it would be a great thing to discuss. It's a tough thing when we're just making videos about it, because you can't take everybody's perspective into account when it's just you stating your thing. And like I said earlier in this video, for those that have signed on later, I meant no disrespect or anything, certainly towards Rick. I love Rick's channel and the videos he's created, and he's done a wonderful thing, and I do believe that his videos do nothing but create more interest in some of this music, and it's almost like curation. He's providing a great service. So, and as I said, when I made my video, I hadn't seen his video yet. I went and watched it later and heard about some of the issues he's having, and I also didn't realize that folks like Paul Davids were having DSUS2 chords claimed, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So that needs to be the smackdown needs to be put on that somehow. I just don't know exactly what do you do about it, but it would be a great thing to, rather than just say, well, there's nothing we can do, I would say that a great thing to do would be, let's talk to a copyright lawyer and see what can be done. Maybe there's an angle to this that I'm a positive thinker. Maybe I'm not realistic. Maybe that's not reality, but when you're dealing with a company like UMG, but maybe, I don't want to say that can't be done. I mean, I know of, there's all kinds of situations where, big corporations come after, smaller guys, and if you band together, I'll use the example of copyrighted guitar shapes, or people that claim that folks like Fender, they kind of lost a situation a while ago when they were claiming that the body shapes were theirs, and a bunch of guitar manufacturers banded together, and there's power in that, even when you're dealing with a big company like Fender, and then went to court, and the little guys won. So, I don't know. So, anyway, I'm so far back in the chat. Confused how a YouTuber then defends themselves against these actions, says Chris. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the discussion needs to happen. Like, what can these guys do? How can they, some of the guys having issues, and I guess the thing to do might be to band together, like get 10 big YouTubers together and, talk about a, get a copyright lawyer involved and see what can be done. I don't know, that's probably the best thing. Robert Baker's in the house. So Robert had a great idea for a video that I'm working on, right? Robert, it's almost done. I just have to play bass on it, and then it'll be done. I'll get it to you later today. He wrote a riff, and then he sent it to some YouTube guitar players, and he wants us all to interpret it and send back a piece of music with us interpreting his riff. So mine's done, except for the bass and a quick mix, and then I'll get it off to you, Robert. And I'm glad you're here, Robert. Hopefully you're still here, because it was a minute ago that you commented. Evan says they copyright strike fair use, which blows. And I agree. So it's not something I know a hell of a lot about. I can't sit here and claim I know much about copyright law and fair use and how they relate to one another. So evidently, if you're teaching or doing instruction, there's fair use laws that, if you're, doing critical analysis or teaching and using a piece of music to do that, that should be fair use maybe there needs to be videos made about that, like education on fair use and maybe some of the avenues that we can take to defend. Teammates makes a point, says, if you're teaching, I get it, but if it's like more like demos and stuff, then yeah, in general, more original content is the way to go. I think that's it in a nutshell. You just said it, actually. That would be my point. I think teaching, I mean, I put up a video, my Angus Young video this past week, teaching. Right. I mean, it's like, it would be great if you could, teach and appreciate music and do music appreciation and stuff like that. And in that context, if that was allowed and we don't have these copyright strikes going on in those situations, that would protect folks like Rick and Paul Davids. And that would be a great solution. And it sounds like legally that should be the case anyway with the current laws. But yeah, if you're using a riff or, like I did in a demo I did of the Lagrange pedal by Bogner, I said, I sang, I'm not going to do it right now because I'll get a copyright strike, but I sang the lyrics to Lagrange, like two 2 bars or something. I just mumbled it. Copyright claim against my video. Copyright, you know, I was hit with one of those. And so, and I'm actually fine with that, you know, because whatever. I mean, okay, so that music was in my video, and this is music delivery service. Wasn't even the music, it was just the lyrics. But it's like, I can avoid that in my videos. But it would be nice if teaching was protected. I would agree with that, you know, so you can provide some critical analysis. It only brings greater appreciation to that music. And yeah, Alvin says they should be glad people want to learn to play their songs. Absolutely, right? I mean, it only makes sense. So can't argue with that. I agree with both of you. I have done videos breaking apart other people's stuff, but I also think it will force people to use more original stuff. Yeah. It's got to be a balance, right? Tone Talk's in the house. What's up? He says, hi, Pete. I would listen to Pearl Jam's Jeremy 100 times after watching Rick's video. That's cool. Yeah, Rick does, man, he does a great job. I mean, he gets you really excited about music that maybe you wouldn't have been, you know. I mean, he's providing great service. There's no, that's all hail Rick Beato and he does a fantastic thing. Let's see. Demos of pedals and amps also need something that an audience identifies with so it can hear something familiar, says Bam. Yeah, I don't know. I've stayed away from it. In my videos, I just decided I'm going to write my own shit just so that I can stay away from any of those issues. And that's kind of what I built my whole channel on, was writing riffs and just simple riffs, like to show you can tell what a pedal sounds like. You don't have to play, you know, there's a few of my videos where, sure, I've done like, you know, I played a Van Halen riff or something like that in them to demonstrate. But the vast majority of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pedal demos that I've done, if you go through my gear demos playlist on YouTube, it's all original stuff. You know, I decided that early on, and we just rolled with it that way. Glenn says, what about using Vimeo? I would assume that it'll just go the same way, Glenn, that, you know, that company like UMG would just move over there. Like, there just needs to be a system established and a framework established so that if you're, like I said, like earlier, if you're uploading a video to YouTube and you're in the monetization or whatever point and you're claiming, you know, the copyright, it's like there was always a tab that you could click saying, this is my cover of someone else's song. Why not there being like, this is my teaching / critical analysis of somebody else's piece of music, you know, and then, you know, if they want to look into it further to make sure that's what it is, whatever. But, you know, that if that's a protected thing under copyright law, then it should be respected. And I would think that should be something that YouTube would listen to and that the labels would respect if there was some sort of smackdown put on them, if they're abusing copyright law in order to make claims where claims aren't due. Yeah, and here's Harlow Hits says, there's a lot of great points being made here, and this is what needs to be done, is there needs to be discussion. Digital copyright in general is a mess and hasn't been updated for internet much. That could very well be true. I would assume that is true, and that we're seeing that reflected now in actions that people are taking, and there just needs to be action taken so that you know, folks are not you know, having their livelihoods and their lives disrupted. It'd be nice to just know what you can do and what you can't do, right? It's just laws, like follow the law, right? I fought the law and the law won. That's the thing, right? You don't want to screw with the law because it's always going to come down on the side of, you know, if you broke the law, then it should be, you know, that's you got to deal with the consequences. So whatever the laws are, they should be respected, I guess, you know. And if the laws need to be changed, tweaked, amended, then that should be done too. Let's see. Been watching Lawful Masses with Leonard French. He is a copyright lawyer who has a YouTube channel. That's interesting. That's from Wolf Z. He defines copyright in many of his videos. That's a great resource. I don't know him, and I should check that out. That is from Wolf Z. Thanks. Lawful Masses with Leonard French. Interesting. Very interesting. Let's see. What else we got here, guys? Have guys like Marty Schwartz commented on what they will do? I'm not sure, actually, if Marty's chimed in on this. I assume he's definitely got some opinions and also some situations that he's probably run into with this. Christopher says, getting back to some gear here, which is primarily what I assume people watch for. We got 516 people online. Good to have you all here, folks. Thank you. I have an open back combo amp situation. Really want a small closed back Marshall sound. Thinking Friedman. Didn't I answer this already? Friedman Runt 20 with a 112 cab, jamming in my living room. I thought I answered that already a little bit earlier, but yeah, that could be a great choice. Yeah, a Runt's a great little amp, you know. I would consider Friedman's Runt amps. I'd also look at my PT15 with a 112 because I think we've made a great amp for your situation. But the Runt is a terrific amp. It's certainly at a different price point than my amp, you know, for sure. And this is super messed up. Aaron says that they got Paul for his own original backing track that someone stole, which is total bullshit. And that should not be happening, you know, and that needs to be, you know, pursued for sure. Not worried about theft of your original music, says Matthew. Of course, you know, but I would also maintain that that you should be able to defend if you can prove that you recorded a version of the song, you know, before somebody else put it out. I mean, how does you know, it's like, you know, and so there should be some defense against that. My chat just jumped all the way to the end. I think I'm going to move to the end anyway because I'm so far behind, so I'm going to move down in the chat, guys. Let's see. What's my absolute favorite chord or key? Says Chuck. I guess it's the A chord because it's the one I always seem to play, don't I? No, I don't know. I don't really have a favorite chord or key. I remember hearing Tom Morello say once, if you want to get heavy, kids, lean on F sharp. That's kind of true. F sharp's cool. D minor, the saddest of them all. Yeah. Has anybody played a VHT Classic 18 amp before? Would love to hear your thoughts. That's from Patrick. I haven't. Maybe somebody out there has. Started to use pedals with the Kemper H9 and MXR. Sounds really good. Better than the effects on the Kemper. Your show is great as always. Thanks for sharing. That's from Real Camp. Yeah, I don't think that you can't use pedals with your modelers, guys. Of course you can. You can use pedalers in the same way. Now, how they hit the front end of a modeler. The one thing I would say is sometimes you just got to be careful about hitting the front end of a digital device, because if you're nailing it with a fuzz or a clean boost or something, you can overdrive the, you know, analog to digital conversion. So you'll find that sometimes you might have to attenuate the input or something like that. And it just won't respond. A tube will just, you know, keep blowing up and do its thing, but in a good way. But a digital device hitting the front end, certain, you know, buffers and things like that in the front end of things, you get a very nasty sound. It's like a cocked wah thing sometimes is a problem. Anything that's targeting a frequency into the front end of a digital device can be, so just be aware of that. But other than that, you know, go for it and use your pedals and stuff with your digital devices to augment their sounds. And what else we got here? I'm trying to find some more questions about gear and stuff. I don't want to comment too much more on the copyright thing because I don't think it's what most people come here for, although it's a good discussion. Is the AVH 5150 50 watt as good as they say? My Blackstar was noisy. Seems like a lot of people like that amp, and then it's very popular. There's two versions, the 6L6 version as well as the EL34 version. Comment amongst yourselves if you guys have had them both. I only own, I had a 100 watt 5150, so I've never owned one of the 50s, but people seem to like them. I guess there was a mod done and they changed the way that the kind of ganged clean and channel 2 volume controls work to make them more, you know, sort of so that they played nice when you change channels. But anyway, I've heard good things about the amp. People seem to like them. Okay. Let's see. How does your SL68 Variac switch affect your tube lifespan? You know, in theory, it should extend the life on the tubes. You know, the lower voltage thing for sure. You know, you're not you're not running although when you're cranking the amp all the time too, that's just a factor. You're going to use tubes faster. But yeah, the lower, I've asked John about that because there's stuff about, for theories about like you variac an amp, and then there's a phenomenon called cathode stripping that happens evidently, but maybe it doesn't happen. John said that's bullshit. That's what he told me. I don't know. Maybe it's the thing, but he says basically that, on an SL68 or SL67, long story short, when you're in the low voltage setting, it's going to extend tube life, and certainly on a Badger, with the power scaling, I think it's the same thing where you're lowering the voltage, you're lowering the B plus on the output section, B plus voltage, and you're, the low voltage starving the tube of voltage doesn't hurt it in any way, shape, or form. It should extend the tube life. That's what I was told. Patrick Carroll says, Pete, in the world of YouTube guitar players, ever heard of Eric Haugen? I have not. He says he's a tasty guy who plays the style of a song and player rather than risking copyright infringement. Clever solution. That's from Patrick. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good solution. I think Rick Beato's point is like that doesn't work for his channel because people come to watch him for critical analysis of classic stuff, and so it's a tougher issue for him, but I believe that it should be protected, and that he should be able to make the videos he makes, and there shouldn't be any question about that. Patrick it was sort of my point in the video this week, which is kind of it's not really a solution, although it sort of is in a short term. Rick said in a comment to me, he said, that works for your channel, like to do just original music and stuff, because that's sort of the framework you've created. But for me, that doesn't work. And yet his situation should be protected. I completely agree with him. I think he's right. But I think Patrick's approach, if you were starting a YouTube channel now, you might want to take this stuff into consideration, as to your approach about playing things like cover songs and teaching and analysis of music and stuff like that. That's all. It's like if Patrick's built a successful platform, and figured out a way to do it, I think that's great. Then it just becomes kind of a non-issue for him. Yeah. That's an interesting point. Speaking about copyright stuff, how about the Blue Jean Cable Company thing versus Monster Cable around 10 years ago? Monster picked on the wrong small company and got squashed. Good stuff. Laws, out there are supposed to protect the big, the small, that's supposed to be the country that we live in, I guess. It doesn't always work out that way, but it's not a perfect system. But you would hope that if there's great harm being done and, the legal system is being abused by big corporations, that small folks could band together and make a case, one would assume. For the artists that don't come after people and cover their music instead, they probably would be happy to see they're not likely to be the mainstream legends, tastefully. I find mostly it's the old school folks that are coming after people the hardest. They're the ones that they want to protect, what's theirs. The old the old guard or whatever. They want to the system that they came up under. They don't like to see that abused either, and they've got a point, because like I say, the folks folks that grew up under a system that then just sort of where the bottom fell out, that can't feel good. And it makes it hard, to make money writing and recording original music. There is the thing, right? With I've got, for instance, engineer friends of mine. This because it trickles down throughout the industry when you can't do music the same way that you used to be able to. It's not just greedy artists or whatever. It's like, think about my pal, recording engineer, a good friend of mine named Steve. He used to work under Glyn Johns. He grew up, London studios. He was Glyn's second for a long time. And he's a great engineer. He worked on stuff like AC/DC's Ball Breaker, like some great records. Joe Satriani's The Extremist. I think he worked on that. I think that was Andy, but I think he worked on that record. But anyway, did a lot of great shit. the bottom fell out of his industry, and he all of a sudden couldn't get good. I mean, all the studios closing in LA and the, big studios closing in New York City, all the people, you got to think about the folks that work in those studios and the second engineers and the, not just the record producers and, the names that you always hear. These are folks that, it was an industry, and it was like they were good at what they did. I mean, recording in those big studios, making some of this classic music. And to have that all just fall out from underneath you, that does not feel good, right? And folks are going to want to protect and try and maintain and fight for what they had going. So it's tough. I don't just see it as greedy artists. I see it as like there was a system in place, and then the bottom fell out, and that pissed a lot of people off, and they were just trying to protect it. Can it be abused, and they can get overzealous, and and then absolutely, like don't go after some guy that played a bar and a half of your music in a video that was speaking to a much bigger subject or something like that. He's not the problem. How do you tweak the law and make it so that it works for, you're not punishing the small guy. Tom is up in the top chat, and he says, my super chats are charging but not showing up. Oh, sorry, dude. I don't know. You mean on my video? I just saw the one that you just did. Apologies. I owe you a cup of coffee now, I guess. But anyway, you're up in the top chat now. I do see you. How long would you play a 7100 watt super lead before changing output tubes if playing a crank through an attenuator? Well, that's very tube dependent. And you probably want to look, I'm going to go with, say, every 6 months. You should be looking at your tubes if you're cranking it all the time. And that's on the outside. I mean, to try and get, if there's a good tech that that'll work with you on this, say, look, I don't necessarily want to pay you a bench fee like every time I come to it. Can you give me an idea? Like, can I come in once, have him pay for a new set of tubes and get it biased and stuff like that and set up, and say, can I come back and see you in 3 months and you can tell me what kind of shape these tubes are in? Because he should be able to throw them on a tube tester pretty quick and see how out of whack they are and what's going on, And if he's like, you're still good, plenty of life left in these, then you'll know that you're cool at 3 months, and then maybe try it again at 6 months, something like that. See if you can come up with somebody that you trust and answer that question for yourself. Because the real answer is, if you're using something like new old stock, 6CA7s or something, or even, Mullards or something that you've got in there, they're going to last a hell of a lot longer than probably modern tubes that'll last like, I don't know how the thing with modern tubes, they just don't last as long. There's some good sounding power tubes out there. We're using in the PTs now, we're using EH tubes for the power tubes, the EH EL34s. We really like those. There's been some issues with JJ and quality as of late. So, Tom says, not a problem, Pete. You are worth every cent. Oh, thanks, man. You're a true gentleman and a scholar. I don't know about a scholar. I try and be a gentleman, but I'm kind of a knucklehead. Guitar player with a high school education. That's all I am. Thank you. Appreciate it, Tom. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. Check at 3 months, check at 6, figure out kind of your own, buy a good set of matched, maybe EHs or something for that Marshall. We've had good luck with those. Know that the JJs, there's been some quality control issues with JJ EL34s recently, and getting a lot of them failing and stuff. So that's why we switched in the Dave Friedman switched as well in his amplifiers to the EHs. Saul is in the top chat. He's up in Canada. What up, homie? He's in Toronto. He says, question regarding a hot rod DeVille. Find it's too warm and MIDI compared to a Twin or Princeton. Is that normal? They are kind of warmer and MIDI-er. I know what you mean. It's probably, that's just the way they sort of sound. I know what you mean. They do sound that way. Compared to a Twin or Princeton, I mean, you might want to try something kind of in the middle of the two of those, like maybe a deluxe. Check out, if you want to do Fender, try maybe one of those the deluxe 68, with the silver face or whatever. I like that amp. I think they're pretty cool. In their range, I think it's pretty neat amp. I like that more than a hot rod deluxe. Just me personally. The other amp I like, that's, by the way, really pedal friendly, that's a Fender amp. Let's not forget about the good old 59 Bassman. I think it's a pretty cool amp. 410 Bassman reissue, pretty solid, great amp with pedals. They sound really cool. Okay, let's see. I'm looking down through the chat, finding something gear related here. Sorry, guys. I kind of steered this down that copyright chat route, and there's a lot of that discussion going on. So Scott says any praise or teaching of music should be welcomed and not put down because it's like free advertising. I agree with that. I mean, I do, you know. Skeleton Pete says, if you are monetizing, then fair use doesn't apply. That could be. I don't know. Could very well be. Would seem to make sense to me. I don't know the law though. So, you know. Let's see. Rick did state in his video, by the way, that he doesn't care if they take he said, just don't take my video down. Don't block. That was his point. He's happy to share the monetization with the owners of the copyright and that kind of thing. So I think he doesn't have any issue with that. I didn't have any issue personally, with this week with putting up, like I say, the AC/DC Hell's Bells video I put up. I guess that was last week, but when the hell did I do that? I don't know. It was a minute ago. But putting up that video and I got a copyright claim on it as soon as I uploaded. I'm like, well, that's only fair. I'm playing Hell's Bells in it. I know I'm teaching it too. It's kind of a lesson video, but I did play a substantial portion of the song in my video. So only makes sense, that's fine. I'm happy to still shine a light on good old Angus. Marco says, hey, Pete, any advice for wired in-ear monitoring? I have in-ears and I'm going to buy a body pack or headphone amp. Do you use in-ear monitoring? Interesting point. The wired in-ears, generally speaking, sounds so much better than the wireless stuff. A lot of drummers and keyboard players, because they're stationary most of the time, will use wired in-ear packs, hardwire without the wireless system. It's just better, more hi-fi, and sounds better, and you don't run into those sounds you get in your ears sometimes with the lots of wireless going on in venues and stuff. Do I have any suggestions? I mean, yeah, I've used in-ears a ton. I don't have any suggestion on it. I've used the systems both from Shure and Sennheiser to good effect. They seem pretty similar. I like them both. Different things, but they both seem pretty good. But I've never done a wired in-ear pack, so I don't know. I only know that most people I know that have tried it in comparison to the wireless in-ear packs say, oh, it's so much better. So they like the wired systems. So, okay. Who else we got down here? Kelly's installing new Thornbucker into his Tom Anderson Classic and really enjoying the discussion today. Thanks. Best way to spend a Sunday. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Jennifer says defend by appeal. Defend by appeal in numbers. Yeah, I mean, if, I agree. Power in numbers. Pete, how about a new 5-minute lesson? That's from Justin. I should do that. I did put up that Angus lesson though recently, which I that came out just like last week or whatever. It was longer than 5 minutes, but yeah. Lauren Moore Music says he received a copyright notice on one of his own songs. That's totally weird and shouldn't be. You should fight that to the death. Yeah. Okay. All Is Not Lost and Monster Movie are my choices to begin the day. Thanks, man. That's awesome. Appreciate that. That's from Scott. 2 songs from my 2 records. How much does Amazon Music pay? Like Amazon MP3 and all that? I don't know. I get payments from them occasionally because some people buy my music that way through them. Just depends, Hector says, hey, Pete, do you have a favorite harmonizer? I like what Digitech did on their Whammy 5. I haven't tried that one. I generally use my Eventides, my H9. The harmonizing is great in the H9s and highly tweakable and programmable. Track's good and all that, so I'll use that, generally speaking. Yeah. Moving down. Mark makes the case. He says, would you expect music teachers in schools to forego a salary? They, after all, make money teaching other people's music. It's absolutely true. I guess where people are running into trouble is they're using YouTube as the delivery system for the teaching, as opposed to teaching in a music school. And YouTube, being a music delivery service, has tried to, I guess, adhere to some of the copyright laws and stuff like that. It's not unlike music being broadcast on the radio or on television or that sort of thing. Now it's YouTube. And the earlier poster said something about how the digital age, it's like not, things are behind that's why I'm saying it's the Wild West. We need to figure out how to, if you're, that you're not just playing a cover. The difference is, are you just playing a cover song on YouTube, or are you teaching? And then should be governed by fair use, but using the same delivery system, using what is partially a music delivery service, YouTube. And so it gets into this gray area, I think, where it's like, wait a minute, this should be protected, and other folks are like trying to obviously say no, it shouldn't, namely UMG. Are there inexpensive ways to play a regular MP3 jackless amp silently? What does that mean? That's from Harm. Are there inexpensive ways to play a regular MP3 jackless amp silently, like through headphones? I don't know exactly what you're saying, but a device like the Sur Reactive Load will load down your amp, and then it's got a headphone amp built in, so you can plug a set of headphones into the Reactive Load, and you can play your amp through it. And you can also plug an MP3 player or a iPhone or whatever into the auxiliary in jack on the Reactive Load. So it's not inexpensive. It's not incredibly expensive either. It's around $5.99 for the Reactive Load, and that'll. It seems to me that'll solve your issue. The main thing with an amplifier is silently is that you need to load it down. So, and that means you need a good load box, Reactive Load or something like that, in order to put a safe load on the amplifier, so you're not going to damage it. And in addition to doing that stuff, it'll give you the headphone amplifier as well as great cabinet sounds, mic'd up cabinet sounds. The chat jumped way forward, so I've lost my place. So I'm going to go down to further down in the chat here and answer some more questions. Alan says the tubes in his 1986 Marshall are over 25 years old and still rock. You should probably take it to a tech and have it looked at, have the filter caps looked at, because filter caps, generally speaking, after 10 years or so, it's like, you're supposed to get those replaced. You might want to have it looked at. Just have a tech look at it. If the tubes are fine, I would pull those tubes out, put them on a tube tester and test them out and have a tech look at them and say yeah or nay, but and maybe have a look at the, great tech look at the competent tech look at the filter caps as well and make sure that the amp's still good. But it's great. Whatever sounds good is good. You just want to make sure it's reliable and that maybe you're not missing out on, maybe you've gotten used to the way it sounds and it still sounds great, but maybe it could even sound better. I don't know, hard to say. Okay. Lauren says, Pete, you've got more than a high school education. You have a life education. That's a bigger deal. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. School of Hard Knocks and all that. I just got some Soviet military surplus EL-84s, says Aquila. I have a set of those too, actually, that I've never used, and I bought them probably 15 years ago, and they're around here somewhere. But Soviet EL-84 equivalents made for, old military applications way back in the day. And they're built to be vibration resistant, low microphonics, matched and tested. They are good. Yeah. Somebody's up in the top chat. It's Saul. Saul, what's up? He says, hey, Pete, really love the quality of the Helix FX, but can't decide between the Stomp, LT, or Flagship. Can I get away with using snapshots in the Stomp? IR and amps are not needed. Want to use tube amps. In that case, what I would do if I was you is I would use the if you want to use the snapshots, like, because there's only a few buttons on the Stomp, I would probably go with the HX effects. Sounds like what you want, HX effects. Love the quality of HX effects, but can't decide between the Stomp, LT, and Flagship. I would go with the HX effects unit that I demonstrated this week using it with the PT15. It seems like I'm going to be able to get the kind of flexibility I need out of it in still a very small footprint for doing what I want to do with tube amps. So that's the one I want to use with my PT15. You know, the little stomp is great, but just know with those three, I don't know that you'll just with that level of, you know, there's switching and stuff. I don't know you're going to be able to get what you want out of it if you want to use it with tube amps and do multiple effects and things like that. I mean, you can do it in theory, you know, but I don't know. Seems a little limiting to me, just foot switch wise. I would go with the HX effects. It's still tiny. Let's see. Someone with Axe effects are similar. Do I recommend they play it through a cab and mic it, or plug straight into the house PA playing live? It depends on your situation, what you're used to, Justin. I've had good luck. You know, I've done tours with an Axe effects where I ran one set of outs with speaker simulators on them going to the house, and I ran the other outputs into a tube power amp and into a Marshall cabinet that I would rent. I was on tour with Melissa Etheridge doing that rig for a while. And I would run into a Marshall cab with a power amp and then just listen to that on stage. That would be my on-stage monitor, because I like to have, you know, a guitar cab behind me with some sound coming out of it. And it worked really good. It was great. Ty Tabor did that for a while, by the way, too. So then you can get the best of both worlds, kind of. But you might be in a type of situation where you're not allowed to do that, or where you can't rent a 412, or where, and in that case, you know, you're okay to just go into the, I mean, the reality is you could do that rig, and you know, at certain gigs you could just have it running into a wedge and use it if that was all that you could do at that gig, and then in other situations you could add the cabinet. So you kind of don't have to pick. I guess you could do it either way. I still like hearing a cabinet behind me. It just works for me. But yeah. That's a super weird comment. Let's see. I'm just going to do a little moderating here, folks. A little bit of moderating. All right. Old PV amps are pedal friendly. That's interesting. That's from Hector. Yeah, the classics were pretty pedal friendly. Classic 410, and that's what when I played with Don Henley Stewart, the other guitar player, used a PV Classic 410 with all pedals into the clean channel, and he had a great tone. Still uses that. I think that's his rig still, with the Eagles and everything. So there you go. He would use it. It was a lot of like Boss pedals. He used a Menatone red snapper, I think, and a few Boss pedals, and that was it. All right. Let's see. Preston says the Jet City amp he has is a good pedal platform. Gear related for Pete or anyone, favorite harmonizer? That's from Hector. I like the H9. We're just talking about that, actually. H9 is a really good harmonizer. Do I like orange amps? Yeah, I don't know much about them, to be honest. Like, I haven't played a ton, but I've played a few. They've got this thick, grindy distortion that I do dig. And Pete, do I think about starting my own band? I've started so many that I kind of don't anymore, but I like to play with bands. I'd like to join an already established band that needs a guitar player, that hopefully, you know, they need somebody that can write or at least come up with parts. You know, that I would consider. I'd love to join a successful established band that needs a guitar player. That's something that I will always be interested in. Can you stop the freak out from cutting off notes? No, it just sort of does its thing, but there's ways to kind of, I guess, sort of through playing it, you learn how to kind of use it, but it does sort of cut off notes after it just sort of stops feeding back after a while. It just works to a point, you know, but I guess real feedback's kind of like that. Does Eventide have your favorite reverbs and modulations? I really like, I don't know about favorite. I really like the reverbs and the modulations. I like the Leslie, especially in the H9. It's great. Like the watery kind of, you know, does a great thing. I don't use it for chorus or anything like that, really, although it does a great detune. The H3000 style detune is awesome. The reverbs, the Black Hole sounds great. And there's another one, the Earth reverb, which I think is their plate algorithm or something, but it's called Earth in the preset. And then I've used that a lot and just tweaked it. It sounds really good. I have their new delay here to make a video of. I think it's called the Rose. So that's here, and I got to get to that pretty quick here. Yeah. Let's see. How how long have you had your blackback cab, and where did you get it? Well, I bought the speakers from a guy in Orange County, and the cab itself is a blockhead cab, blockhead recreation of a late 60s Marshall. And it's a great cabinet. Sounds really good. Hey, Pete, do you know of any good solos to try and listen for someone trying to wrap their head around shredding? Get the Paul Gilbert instructional videos. They were a great resource for me, as well as John Pertucci's instructional video. That's a great place to start. But the early Paul Gilbert, the first, I think he came out with like 3 instructional videos. They're, what's that spell? Licks. It's that one. Get that one. It's a great place to start. That was like ground zero for my alternate picking. Let's see. Tim says he's a full-time guitarist in Nashville, which is no easy feat. That's awesome. That scares me. I don't think I could do it. I think I'd be run out of that town. He's been using his Helix a lot lately on the road, and I'm curious about what blend of IRs or EQ you're using. I use the Celestion IRs a lot these days. So I kind of like the all mic mixes of, where they'll blend a 57, a 121, and a 421 into a sound. And then beyond that, you can just kind of tweak with EQ and stuff and get it a little closer. But I think those are a great place to start for sure. So the Celestion all mic mixes, I really like the Greenback 412 closed back. And I like what are other ones by them I like? The ones they just did for Sir are really great. So there's some Celestion Sir IRs. The 112 and 212 open back. The 212 is a 65, Celestion 65s and a Hedgehog cabinet. Some of those sound really good. So try the all mic mix. I use the high gain versions, by the way, for just about everything, because I find they're just a little warmer and darker, and the low gain ones are brighter and spankier and sparklier, but I find sometimes a little too much. So even for clean sounds, I'll use the high gain versions. They sound great to me. Let's see here. Ben says, anybody else in the chat agree we need a mod in here? Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right, guys? It's like, because I'm the only one doing it. And when you're answering questions, I didn't want to ever turn this into a thing that I did block the guy you mentioned, by the way, guys, Tom and others. I don't ever want to turn it into a thing where it gets too big and it's like I need other people. It's just kind of a fun thing that I would do on my own. But I know it sucks sometimes when there's jerks in the chat and stuff. Save Your Money is in the top chat. Thank you, sir, for doing that. Appreciate it. He says, hi, Pete. I was wondering about the UA aux. Has it become part of your daily workflow? I use it a lot. I used it yesterday on something. So yeah, I really like it. It's terrific. It's highly tweakable. And it's, definitely a favorite piece of gear of mine lately. So I support it. It's about 1:26. So I've been going about 2 hours. So I'll go today I'll do a longish one. I'll go another 10 minutes here because we still got 484 people online. And I'll just answer a few more. So Hector says he's got a JCM 800 and Fender Twin Reverb, old PV Bandit 112, and it rocks just as good. The faithful old PV. I remember those well. Cheers from Portugal, says Bruno. What's up, Portugal? How you doing? Anyone having problems with freshly strung high E strings from a certain brand coming apart where the string is twisted around the ball end? I have had this happen. Yes, sir. Aquila is having this issue with certain ball ends. Now, is it on a certain guitar only? That would be my question. I've got a fix for you, but it's a bit of a pain in the ass. The fix is solder the wind. So I've had that happen on certain sets of strings, and I've had to go and solder so you just, heat up a soldering iron, drip solder where the wind goes around right before it goes to the ball. Problem solved. That'll take care of that, the string unwinding. But I know it's a pain in the ass. Now, what I would recommend is, and what I switched to for quite some time, was the Ernie Ball RPS. So originally Kahler tremolos, they would have this kind of cam that do you guys remember Kahlers? If you're old like me. And the string would go into this little plastic thing that held the ball end, and then the ball end the wind then would go over the cam and then go over a string saddle that had a roller on it, and that the wind going over that cam would rub, and it would cause the string to unwind many times. So way back in the day, Ernie Ball created the RPS strings, reinforced plain strings, and they had a wind around the ball end, or around the entire winded string and then the ball. And it was like this gold stuff that they would put around there. That'll solve your problem as well. I found that on certain guitars, I was having that problem. It was like 2-3 years ago, but I was having on a Les Paul style. It was actually my Scala. The high E strings were popping. And so I got around it by telling my tech to solder the winds, and that solved the problem for a while. And then after that, I thought, I wonder about those RPS strings, if they still sell them. And sure enough, Ernie Ball made those, and I started ordering those, and that solved the problem too. So they're good. They're a good thing to use. Somebody's up in the top chat. It's Dennis. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for taking the time to do these Sunday live chats. I've learned so much over the past 63 weeks. It's hard to believe it's been 63 weeks, but it has. It's a year and something, 52 weeks in a year, right? Anyways, I appreciate it. Thanks for your support, dude. I appreciate all you guys being here. So I got 467 people online. Thank you for joining me on a Sunday. You guys are the best, and I'm just happy anybody cares about anything that I have to say. So let's see. Have I ever used, or do I have a favorite speaker for a blackface style amp, like a deluxe reverb reissue, or even a 60s Bassman? Currently have an Eminence Red Fang, but not super happy with it. So deluxe reverb. So I'm sort of most familiar with British style stuff, I'll confess. And so because of that, I know the Celestion line of speakers really well. So like, for instance, I would recommend that you try an A-type in your deluxe reverb amp. It's a Celestion, but that was designed to do sort of more American style voicing. Now, there's a whole bunch of speakers out there from folks like Jensen and Eminence that you could look into. I'm not really. I'm gonna admit I don't really have like a great perspective on what those 12-inch speakers that Fender used in the 60s really sound like. The 10s a little more. But I don't have this great perspective on what the 12s and their sort of sonic footprint, whatever they used, in twin reverbs and in, JBLs and, Eminences and stuff that they used. So all I can do is offer what I can offer. But I would say in a deluxe reverb reissue, try an A-type. I really like the A-type. There's a demo of it on my channel if you want to take a listen. And I think Celestion did a nice job with it. And it's a reasonably priced speaker. And in a 10-inch style speaker, in a Bassman, the Celestion Gold is one of the greatest speakers that they've ever made, I think, the 10 specifically. A lot of people love that speaker, the Alnico Gold. It's, high, it'll handle 50 watts, I do believe 50 watts, and they sound just great. I also am a really big fan of the Greenback 10-inch, so the G10, GM10 or whatever, G12, G10M, the 10-inch version of the Greenback is a really nice speaker. I have it in a 112, but that's getting a little bit away from the Fendery thing. I feel like the Alnico Gold will give you a little bit more of that, 410 Bassman character, I would think. But were you talking about Bassman or blackface style? 60s Bassman. 60s Bassman, like Bassman head, and then we're talking about more like a head. I think what you mean, I'm guessing what you mean is a 410 Bassman, but that's taking a guess. I'm going to go with A-type and Alnico Gold 10 as being my recommendations. Ben Funk is in the top chat. Thank you, sir. He says, hey, Pete, thoughts on low output PAF style pickup for 80s rock, looking to tame the high-end sizzle in my 5153 and DiMarzio Super Distortion. Well, good sir, you want a Thornbucker, because that's what we did. Alnico 4 magnet, lowish output PAF style pickup. That's exactly what my pickup is. And you'll find that it tames the sizzle of the high end. And the nice thing is you're going to notice as you go up the neck on the high E string and do bends and stuff like that, that the note just sings, but it doesn't take your head off. So it's a great thing about the Thornbucker Plus or regular Thornbucker. And I think you'll like it. Very, very different than something like a Super Distortion, which is an all out sort of, fairly high gain assault on the front end of your amp. It's sound though. Not dissing it. It's just a different thing. What are my thoughts on mini humbuckers? I have very little experience with mini humbuckers as well. But I think they're kind of cool. And the ones that I've played sort of fall in between a regular humbucker and a single coil in their tone. I don't know how else to describe, but they're generally on the low output side of things, and they've got a little bit more clarity than a wide, they're sensing a less wide that humbuckers can have a little bit of a homogenizing effect on the tone. Sometimes I find, especially neck ones, right, can have a great warm thing and nice full thick mid range that can work well. That's for sure. But I just find that it's sometimes when you're playing cleaner sounds or you want a little bit more sparkle or clarity, a humbucker can be a little bit dark in certain situations. That's what we were trying to do also with the Thornbucker neck by doing the unbalanced coils and real low, like 7.2K output. And it works. It really works. But a mini humbucker sensing less of the string is going to give you even more of that probably single coil type character, depending on the mini humbucker, of course. But yeah. Do I have advice for writing patches, headphones, or live advice? The problem with writing patches using things like headphones is that it doesn't really give you this. The number one thing when you're writing patches for live use is to try and use it in as close to a real performance situation as possible, because things like delay mix and also bass, like when you're testing things through headphones and then you hear it through a big PA, can be very different. So it's like you want to try and use as close as you can to the regular, to the real rig as you can get. Does that make sense? Like get as close as you can, to the real performance situation, and then tune the thing in. Tune whatever the device is that you're making presets on. Thoughts on new reactive load? Done quite a bit of stuff on that already, but I guess I never did really a full demo of it, but it's awesome. It's great. I mean, the thing that so my main thoughts about the reactive load versus any other type of load box, the aux, different situations, is that it's simple. So you can plug it in and it's going to sound good. I've seen a lot of people make comments about it on the gear page and stuff. It says, I got this thing, I plugged it in, I've been using it for 4 or 5 days. My instant thoughts are I might try some other IRs at some point, but the reality is I've found ones that sound just great in it. It sounds awesome. Did a recording with it, sounds great, or took it and used it at a gig, just worked, does the job, sounds great. That's the main strength of that unit, I think. It sounds great and it's simple to use. There's not a lot of tweaking going on. It's not like with the aux, you've got reverbs and delays and different things you can do, and mic position and on axis, off axis. With the reactive load, it's just IRs. You load it in there. The load is super high quality. It sounds great. Got the headphone amp. It just sort of does its thing, and in a very simple fashion. So for folks that don't want to mess around a lot, which I think is a huge segment of the guitar population out there, guitar community, it's a great thing. Thoughts on Mick Jagger's health? I don't really know that much about what's going on. Evidently had a very successful surgery, and I hope he's just doing well. Okay, yeah, we need a moderator. I can see there's some real bullshit going on in the chat. But all I can do is block folks, and believe me, I will do it. But anyway, sorry guys, took me out of my mode. Generally, guys, we gotta say that guys and girls that are out there, we gotta say it's pretty great, because I suffer very little from the whole troll thing, and I've been really lucky, and I hope that continues. And, it's like there's sort of a minimum in my comments and stuff of bullshit that goes on. And for that, I'm thankful, anyways, sorry guys about that happens here sometimes, but luckily it's not that common, right? So Jennifer, you should know too, because you said Manicubes, what the, like, you're using the F word a lot, which I like to say on a regular basis, but just know that the only problem is YouTube automatically blocks your comment anytime you swear in the comments. So, and then in order for your comment to show up, I would have to physically go through and activate your comment. So just that's what's going on. Your comment won't show if you use the F word or any other swear word, which I got no problem with, but YouTube does, evidently. Anyways, guys, I got a split here. So just a couple more questions, and I'm going to get out of here. Let's see. Moving down to the bottom of the chat here. Leon says he's got a DiMarzio 1980 Super Distortion. They came off an old 80 Ibanez. Would I install them on a Squier Jagmaster over the Duncan design ones that come stock? Best channel ever. Thank you, man. Sure, you could. The only thing to be aware of is I have an original 80s or early 80s or maybe late 70s Super Distortion. It wasn't potted. That's the one that's in that guitar I used in the SL68 video I did. And you should just know that if it's not potted, you know, you're going to get a lot of squealing with any kind of gain going on. So you might want to have a tech potted or something, or just get a newer one, because you might not want to pot it because it's kind of cool. It's unpotted. An original one, you might not want to modify a vintage pickup. So maybe you just want to buy a new one. But anyways, what else? But yeah, if you wanted Super Distortion, go ahead and install those in your guitar. Haven't seen a Gretsch in my lineup, says Inspired to Victory. That's true. I'd love to have one someday. I have a set of TV Jones classics in a Reverend flat rock and love them. I do have one guitar with a Filtertron style pickup in it, and that is a James Tressart T that's metal and hollow and has like a one in the neck position and a telly pickup in the bridge. And that guitar is really cool. I don't play it a lot. I should get it out and use it, I guess. But I do have it. It's got a Bigsby on it too. It's my only guitar with a Bigsby. So it's kind of Gretschy, but because it's got its own thing going on with the metal body and stuff, it's really its own deal. Okay, well, here's one more. Favorite condenser, large diaphragm mic, your go-to. I have all kinds of favorite. I mean, I use, right now I'm speaking through an inexpensive Samson. That's my G-Track Pro that I use for these things. But this microphone is really good. It's a Mojave MA200. This is a nice mic for around $1,100 or $1,200, I believe they are. Tube mic. Sounds great. For mini singers. For other ones, it's a little bright, I find. So you might, a great mic to have around would be something like an Audio-Technica 4050 or 4060 is the tube version. Now they have new versions of those mics. I really like the Audio-Technica mics for a good all-round, great sounding mics that are still relatively inexpensive. They're not super cheap, but I think a 4050, they were never more than $700 or $800. That's a really nice microphone. A 4060 is the tube version, a little bit more money. Audio-Technica just makes great mics for the money. They're durable. They sound terrific. Just great workhorse microphones. You might look at those as well. My favorite mics have been in the past. Have been like, if you want to talk about my absolute favorites, have been like an M49 Neumann. And I used to have access to an original U47 that was like, back in the day in the 90s, that might cost $6,500. It was a, original, I guess, a 50s or 60s U47 that my old roommate had. And I had a studio with this fellow, and we had like, Soundcraft Ghost board and some DA88s. And then we had like some nice Neve 1066 mic pre's and that old U47, pretty cool studio that we had going back then, actually. That U47 was exceptional. Sounded great. So the U47 and the M49 are the two that I really loved. Have I ever played a Collings semi-hollow? Yeah, a little bit. Nice. Collings guitars are nice. Their acoustics are beautiful too. What else have we got here? Bill says, thanks, Pete, for a couple of sane hours from all the political pollution out there. Yeah, we can just come here and talk guitar. I like it. I guess it's time to go, guys. All right, I'm going to go finish my video for Robert Baker. So that video, I'll get you those videos. If you're still here, Robert, you're probably not, but I'll get you the video this week or later today. Actually, I should be able to get it off to you. And what else have I got coming up this week? I got to do a bunch of videos this week for some different stuff. A bunch of pedals, Matthews pedals, and what else am I doing? All kinds of stuff that I got coming. So spring reverb from Source Audio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please hit the thumbs up if you guys don't mind, if you enjoyed this whole situation. I really appreciate it. And come back and see me next Sunday. I'll be here same time, same place. And 14. Yeah, I'm going to take a little vacation eventually, but it's coming up in a few weeks. So yeah, next Sunday I'll be here. Same time, same place. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.